Hi everyone, my name is Valerie Toledo. I am the founder of Acropolis Marketing, a marketing agency for small businesses, and I'm so excited to be here moderating this panel with all our talent champions tonight. So you've all had incredible and established careers, which is why we're honoring you. To kick us off, I think we should go around briefly, share our names, where we work, our titles, and finally how we got into marketing. Was it accidental or was it intentional? Cliff, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Valerie, and really honored to be on a panel today with Edlynne and Marcelo, great company, and I'm honored. So Cliff Courtney, Chief Marketing Officer at an Omnicom agency named Zimmerman. How I got into the industry, I've always been of two minds, I would say, specifically right brain and left brain. I studied business and accounting and even psychology, but then I was a writer and I was a musician and I was trying to figure out how to reconcile those two things, let alone monetize them, until I discovered Marcom and advertising. And then clearly there was a path. I don't think I had experienced such a rush of adrenaline as I did when I realized I could look at a business's KPIs, I could develop a strategy to drive their growth, and then I could look at a blank screen and a blinking cursor and create some magical IP that would then really drive their success. Again, it's a career that's fantastic. I'd say other than teaching, there's no substitute for it. Incredibly rewarding, and I've never looked back.
Absolutely. Nice to meet everyone and so honored to be a talent champion. I'm Edlynne Laryea. I work at Facebook and I lead one of our industry verticals, the consumer packaged goods vertical, and I'm here in New York. And I got into marketing, I think it was sort of deliberate and not deliberate, if that makes sense. So very similar to Cliff. I love arts and science, and I actually was going to be a vocal performance major in university, but I wasn't actually good enough to do that. So I went into business, but I was always craving that creative side of it, and I felt that marketing was just such a nice blend between art and science, and I also really didn't like any of my quant courses, frankly. Had much more fun in all of the qual courses, which were marketing, consumer behavior, and just really understanding how to make things tick. I also think it's a career where you can never be bored. It's a really great opportunity when you're a GM of a brand. There's so many things that you need to think about. It's just really great to be able to get all these little pieces together to build an amazing experience for your consumers. So I kind of fell into marketing and I love every second of it.
Oh, hi. Well, first of all, as well, just like Cliff and Emily mentioned, super happy to be here and honored to, to be on this panel. I am the SVP at National Geographic for our digital experiences, meaning everything that we publish on our website and our apps. Most of my career in National Geographic has actually been on brand strategy. And in my case, the move to marketing was very much intentional, right? Most of my career in the beginning was on product side, product development, product sales, product management. And I reached a point that I said, I need to grow my career horizontally, right? And get to know different areas. I'm always trying to look for, I say, to places where the rules that I know don't apply and I have to rewire my brain. So I specifically, for years, tried to move from product to marketing. And it was hard because I didn't have the experience, right, in marketing until I found a position that I could leverage my product skills to build Priceless.com back in MasterCard. And that was my foot into marketing. And then I fell in love with it. And I just, basically tried to hang on to marketing as much as I could throughout my career.
So I wanted to dive into a few individual questions about each of your careers. Edlynne, I'll start with you. You've had a long and fascinating career. You've worked in CPG with Unilever and Facebook, at a nonprofit, in experiential marketing, and that's only naming the few that I stalked from your LinkedIn. But I noticed you also briefly worked as a consultant. What was it like to work for yourself in that capacity, and what advice do you have for young people in the industry who work for themselves?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I ended up as a consultant. Actually, it was my first job out of university. So I worked in consulting, really liked that, but was drawn to the siren of marketing and went into brand marketing. I actually ended up being a consultant for myself out of necessity, to be honest. So there were a couple of job changes, and I actually am Canadian, so working here in the US, ended up being a consultant for a number of brands to start. And I have to confess, I really didn't like it. working for myself, if I'm honest. So my advice to people who are going on the self-employment route or sole proprietorship is make sure you really like doing it, because I think there's a meme going around that, do whatever you love, because you're probably going to be doing it 24/7. And it can be a really hard slog to run your own agency or run your own business. And I learned that I wasn't really cut out for it. I like to have teammates. I like to have some of those responsibilities spread out a little bit more. But I think it's a fascinating career for people that can do it really well.
Marcelo, I'm going to ask you a question now. You worked at MasterCard for over 15 years before you went on to the National Geographic, and you kind of touched on this a little bit in the first question. You worked across product development, strategy, digital marketing, and more on the international scale. I researched your background, and I noticed you alternated between, your brand strategy and specifically digital roles. What is it about digital that has kept you coming back to those type of roles, especially in our modern, more digital society?
The reality is that in my career, I like to say that I chase puzzles, right? I get bored very easily if I'm doing the same thing over and over. So I'm always trying to look for something new, something that is a new challenge that will increase my learning curve, right? And this moving between marketing and products was part of that, right? So when I first went from product to marketing, it was because I wanted to, as I mentioned, I wanted to be in a place that I had to relearn everything that I knew and drop my assumptions, right? Then coming back from products it was different, because then I brought a different set of knowledge of how things worked on the marketing side and bring into products and be able to kind of apply to how does this apply in this world now? And in reality, after doing these moves a few times, I end up becoming a little bit of a translator or a diplomat between teams, right? And that's where I end up moving between them, because I can understand what product and technology is saying and what marketing is saying. Say, oh, you guys are saying the same thing, but you're using different words, right? What you actually meant is this. So being able to do that connection helps accelerate what we can deliver, because most marketing now is digital, right? And all of our products, if it doesn't have marketing, it won't go anywhere, right? So that role is what keeps me moving back and forth.
Cliff, moving on to you. Before you came CMO of Zimmerman Advertising, you were a professor at the University of South Florida, where you created the brand scaling curriculum. You also created multiple discovery methods, ethnocept hijacking, habit mapping, etc. at Red Light Project Research for Zimmerman. And you created an educational track at the Miami Ad School. You're an educator, you're a true innovator in this industry. What is your process like for creating and protecting your intellectual property?
Wow, so that's a big time question. Bravo, Valerie, because that question isn't asked enough, quite frankly. So for creating, and that's a big word, 2 rules of the road for me. I would say number 1 is, and there's no shortcut for this, unfortunately, it's accumulated experience, accumulated trial and error. As the more you do this, the more your brain sort of teaches itself and optimizes how to be better at it. And so again, no shortcut, but it's why I tell people entering the business, take on as much as you can, volunteer as much as you can, get involved as much as you can, because the more input you get, the faster and better you'll progress. The second thing for creating, of course, is you've got to stay incredibly current on popular culture and trends and technology. And that's even like Squid Game to Shakespeare. It's like even things that might not be your cup of tea, you got to stay current on that stuff. Popular culture is popular for a reason. I
have one more question. As we close, I would love to know, throughout each of your career journeys, what is the most important risk that you took, and why did you take that risk? Marcelo, I'll have you go first.
In my case, the biggest risk I took was earlier in my career when I decided to uproot my family and move to another country, right? It was a downgrade of a position, but I just felt that I needed that professional and personal experience, right? It was a gamble. My family could have liked, moving from Miami to Madrid, or they could hated it, right? It worked out well, but it also gave me a very different set of perspectives of the world, of my career, and I'm a lot better on understanding, not making assumptions about the market that you're talking to, right? Because a lot of cases, this one, it really taught me, and from there on, I became an advocate, not only for people to go and have an experience in a foreign country if you have the chance to, but in always opening your mind and listening to what's happening around the world, because those are the things that will help shape you and create those new, synapses on your brain that will allow you to see things different from everybody, that are building a very vertical career, right?
So interesting, because my answer is very similar to Marcelo's. So I also took risk, and I am in a foreign country in the sense that I'm not American, and I moved to New York. So I agree. I think the opportunity to travel and move for different opportunities is so important. And New York is such a huge, important city in terms of the world of advertising and marketing. The career path that I've had, the opportunities that I've had, I would not have had had I stayed in Canada, even though I'm a very proud Canadian. I really enjoyed it. But at the same time, I learned so much working in Canada. We have so many fewer resources. As a marketer in Canada, you have to learn to do everything. I can do press approvals, to deal with ops in factories because of that. So I wouldn't give up the formative years that I had in Canada, but the risk I took to move here was really important.
Yeah, no, it sounds like moral of the story is move abroad and try new things. Just kidding. But what about you, Cliff?
So I'm a big believer in taking risks, especially when you're betting on yourself. And my tale is exactly the same as Marcelo's and Edlynne's, except different in that mine did not work out. So I took a risk, moved to a position that in truth, I wasn't really qualified for, but I was saying, I can do this. I'm going to bet on myself. I'll make it work out. And it didn't. I would say, though, that the lessons I learned during that time accelerated my career in a way that it never would have had I not taken that risk. So we all have setbacks. We all have things that don't work out, and we all have failures. It's what you do with it, of course. You don't put it as baggage in your trunk. You put it as fuel in the gas tank, and you go, baby, go.
Well, thank you all so much for participating in this panel. This was really great. It was a learning experience for me, and it was great to hear about your experience and to just honor you here tonight. So thanks.